Hey, welcome to our final class on Saturn. And this is kind of a summary class, just kind of reviewing a lot of the key principles that we learned. And, I think it's important to kind of synthesize everything that we learned and remember it. As we know in Vedic astrology, it's very easy. It's a little bit like the morning dew settling on the leaves, and the sun comes up and then it evaporates, and then we're wondering what we remember. And as I get older, I'm having trouble remembering things. So it's actually good for me to kind of have it down. Let's start with some Vedic chanting. Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha. Vakritunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprapa Niriyam Kurame Deva Sarvakareshi Sarvada Jnanamulam Guru Murti Bhujamulam Guru Padam Mantramulam Guru Vakyam Mokshamulam Guru Kripa Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Vrichoma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavahai Tejasvina Vatitamastu Ma Vivishai Om Shanti 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 Om Aditya Samaye Mangulai Buddhaya Cha Guru Shukra Shani Vischara Have Ketave Namaha. Honoring the great ones, Lord Krishna, Goddess Saraswati, Veda Vyasa, my spiritual teachers, all my great Jyotish teachers, and welcoming Affy and Emma's here. I think we have a new picture for you, but got the old one here, and we're good. One of the reasons I wanted to have this class, like I said, it's just important for us to kind of review and synthesize. And this work is so important. And, half the time people are coming to you because Saturn is doing something, and we really have to help them understand it. Otherwise, they get rather despondent, and many people to think. So I want to kind of review the core principles, and I kind of want to make this a short class, but I just think it's important for us to spend a little time reviewing the core principles that we learned. So again, foremost, Saturn is not here to hurt us, but to teach us virtue and discipline. So most people kind of sometimes look at the malefics in such a difficult way, and they want to blame their Saturn. And again, I've always reminded you that Saturn is just the tough high school coach that wants you to win the race. So it's really important to, sometimes pain and suffering are part of the growth process, and it's just happens, with life. I mean, it's very painful for the little sprout to come out of the seed and push its way up, and in the process it's goes through a lot of pain, and then it kind of eventually stretches its way up and becomes some beautiful flower or some beautiful piece of fruit. But it's a process, and there is some pain that is necessary and some effort. And I think important for us to understand that Saturn is sometimes about effort. Jupiter kind of is grace, and sometimes things just happen and fall into place. Saturn is, hard work, and with hard work comes suffering and some pain and some fatigue. But it's something that is part of life, and we just can't ignore it. Again, it teaches us how to make our intentions dominant over our fears and laziness. Again, when Saturn's weak, if we move into why bother energy, or if we move into I'm just not going to do it, we don't achieve our goals, and it does take effort and work to achieve our goals. So it's important to kind of, when that laziness comes up, and say, why bother? You just have to kind of move ahead. Saturn may take away our crutches and show us darkness, impossibility, defeat, and despair, but it beckons us to have faith and turn to the divine. Do we heed its call, or move into addiction and isolation. It forces us to believe in ourselves when the going is tough. So I think that's really important, is that, and I've had these dark Saturn moments, and, I think we all have, and you have to kind of reach in and find the divine, and find your faith and trust in God, and know that if you move forward, you'll get supported. Again, if we fail to learn Saturn's lessons, we fall into despair and melancholy, but it should force us to work hard and make us strong and tough, and then the joy will come. If it creates pain and suffering, it's teaching us to grow and become better athletes at work. It's kind of like at the gym, no pain, no gain. I don't. We all just have to go through a little bit of that. So core principles of Saturn we have to remember is willingness to face the difficulties we experience in life as the karmic outcome of past action. So Saturn is a planet of karma, and rather than feel like a victim when, oh my God, so-and-so did this to me and that happened to me and stuff like that, Saturn requires us to take responsibility that, like, if this is happening, I messed up in the past and I better get it right this time. So again, it's like Groundhog Day. We need to, use what happens with these Saturn energies to cancel our karmic debt. So we did something difficult in the past, we're suffering now, we have to kind of go through it and make it right again to cancel our karmic debt. The ultimate goal is to move us beyond the material and move us towards spirituality. Again, the nature of Capricorn, which is kind of a funny planet, it's a very kind of business sign and very material sign, and yet the monster in the lagoon, which is, I use that analogy with Makara, it's not even a crocodile, it's actually some kind of swamp creature. It's kind of ugly, and it wants to kind of rise out of the swamp of the material and to ascend, towards something spiritual. And so Saturn, has to move us in that direction, and ultimately it uplifts and it wants to spiritualize. On the Aquarian side, it asks us to commit to the world and uplift society. So Saturn, being an outer planet, it's very kind of socially oriented, and we know from Aquarius, it's about what can we do for the world, what can we do for humanity, how can we serve our society. So it has a bigger role than just being selfish. Saturn is always teaching us about responsibility, but and then too much responsibility, and kind of balancing our personal achievements and desires with the rest of society. And ultimately, Saturn can cause a lot of stress in our life unless we learn to balance it out. And that's why Saturn likes exercise and yoga and meditation, because we have to kind of turn to those Saturnian remedies to kind of balance out hard work and stress. Ultimately, Saturn requires us to accept responsibility. We have to go to work. We have to take care of our family. We have to pay our taxes. And the worst thing we can do about these situations is to complain. Saturn hates complaining. If you listen to people who complain, you want to run away. And it's a very unconscious pattern. It's kind of an ugly pattern. And it means that we're lazy and we're not willing to accept our responsibility, which means we want to blame somebody for our fate. But, we created it, and we have to go through it and not complain and do it in a stoic way. On a dark level, Saturn can represent guilt, fear, and self-imposed restrictions. And all of those energies are kind of difficult, and we've had some lessons around getting through them. I mean, guilt is getting stuck in the past. That was then, this is now. We have to kind of let go of whatever happened, not live in fear of remembering what happened in the past, and just move forward and create a new future. Fear is always kind of It's kind of, it's base chakra survival energy that, keeps us, when we're a reptilian animal that we know to hide behind the rock so we don't get squashed. But in a sense, fear becomes a huge impediment in our life because it prevents us from moving forward, and we have to kind of trust and let go of the past. Otherwise, we get stuck in restriction and isolation. And the dark side of Saturn is that when it does create fear, we have to kind of box our way out of it, and that requires usually meditation and exercise and mantras and all kinds of things. Otherwise, it can take over very easily. Sometimes it's very unconscious, but it imprisons our mind, and most of the nonsense in our mind is just nonsense. It's just, Eckhart tells us 99% of the thoughts we have, the fears we have don't manifest. The 1% that, do manifest, usually are kind of surprises. So it's important to, when fear comes up, to say, acknowledge it. Okay, I see you. You can go now. We don't need to play that game anymore, because it blocks. Saturn tries to block you from moving forward, and you have to kind of say, I'm stronger than that. I can move forward. Saturn creates pain and suffering, and often is responsible for physical pain. So one of the big hallmarks of Saturn is pain. And if you look in the chart and you see what, your medical astrology, you can see where pain is going to happen, in the chart, and sometimes you can see what's causing it. Ultimately, we have to, I think we had a little bit of a lesson on that. We have to kind of move beyond and understand the emotional component of what the pain is trying to tell us, and to heal it. And it's usually some deep psychological pattern that needs to heal, but we have to accept it and move forward. Core lesson of Saturn then is, when it's afflicted, it creates too much fear. And if we make a mistake, and it's being revisited now, creates too much blocking energy about moving forward. So we have to kind of, there are times to be fearful. I mean, obviously, if there are gang members in the street and they're shooting, I mean, you're smart enough not to go out in the street, and you're going to call the police. But if we imagine that we can't take a walk down the street because the gangs are going to get us, or that if we go out on the highway, something terrible is going to happen, we start getting imprisoned in our mind, and it's a huge prison. And we have to recognize that fear often gets overplayed, and we can combat fear, through all the remedies we had talked about in the remedy lesson. We have to drink calming herbal teas. We have to do more meditation. We have to do exercise. We have to eat the right foods, and we can calm down these energies. And most of the time, it's just noise, and you have to kind of learn how to move forward in your life and just dismiss it and say, nope, that's an old pattern. I'm living in the past. I need to move forward, making new choices. Saturn's the perfectionist, the methodical, cautious person. It requires us to persevere, to be humble, and to take on demeaning tasks. I mean, there's a little bit, sometimes I read these, I was in academia, I read these arrogant people, I'm like, God, who are just afraid to, get their fingernails dirty. Not that many people like that, but, you have to kind of, Saturn represents the common man, and you have to kind of appreciate what they do. I think we talked about this during the course. It's kind of like, the cleaning people are just so important because they beautify our space, and without them, where would we be? And Sanjay Roth said they're, embodiments of Lakshmi. It's kind of, so we have to kind of honor these people, the hard workers, the peasants, the poor. We need to donate to them. We need to make their life easier. We need to uplift them, and it's very important you know, to even get in the trenches with them when we need to. It's very important. Something that I've learned that has to be done. You just, you know, this is partly my Saturn out Macorca. Saturn likes rules, and you know, a lot of people who don't like rules have a problem with it. There are reasons for rules. Again, our society kind of falls apart if we don't have laws and rules, and at the same time, you know, so they do kind of create a larger infrastructure that's needed. Saturn's the Lord of time and sets boundaries by delaying fulfillment of desire. So I think, you know, we have to learn that eventually our desires will get completed. I think if you look back in your lives, there are things that you wanted that you eventually got, or maybe they're still in process. But the nature of the divine is that it always wants to fulfill our desires. We pray with sincerity, emotion, focus, and clarity, and then we can manifest. And if we get caught up with fear and doubt, which is what Saturn tries to do sometimes, then it's kind of blocking energy. It means that things will get delayed a little bit, but we have to kind of go back and go deeper and move. The remedy for Saturn is always Jupiter. We have to kind of trust the divine and not get caught up in the limiting energy sometimes that Saturn gives us. And ultimately, even when material things are denied, or when Saturn takes away material things, it's trying to move us into spirituality and beyond the physical. I know I meet people that, you know, they're really into physical fitness, and they don't have any interest in meditation, and it's just how much money they put in the bank. And it's a very, ultimately, you know, those things fall apart, and without a strong spiritual life and trusting God, you know, it becomes very difficult. So it's very important to create that balance. And Saturn ultimately wants to move us there. Saturn can be cold and dry and logical. It wants scientific fact. It governs science. It wants solid evidence. It's into health and longevity, physical structure, and it's very powerful. Beautiful part of the Saturn archetype is kind of getting back to the land, working the land, kind of like the hippie movement, very Saturnian, finding people's roots, feeling the earth, retreating from the city into nature. It's kind of a, you know, kind of a Walden Pond type thing. It's very kind of Saturnian, moving into solitude. It's very important. That's an important part of Saturn. There's a time for that. There's something, you know, Capricorn is very earthy, and there's something about farming, which is governed by Saturn, and gardening that kind of grounds us to the earth and makes us very real. And I think Saturn is good at making us down to earth, no nonsense, takes no prisoners. So our general karma of Saturn that we have to remember is that to shoulder our responsibilities and persevere through difficulties, and remain true to our personal convictions regardless of social pressure. You know, when Saturn's weak, when it's weak in transit or it's weak in our chart, we have to kind of resist laziness, refusal to make an effort, resist the why bother energy, and go for, and watch out for the excessive material ambition, which takes Saturn a little bit out of balance. When we have good Saturn karma from past duty, we have stability of lifestyle and the ability to gain natural respect of others and rise in position of responsibility. We're blessed with good concentration and capacity to work hard and realize our goals. Saturn wants us to work hard, you know, and, you know, as I said, part of the problem, you know, maybe by age 36, when Saturn ripens, we kind of realize we got to do that if we're going to pay our mortgage and feed our kids. You know, before that, Saturn's kind of a big enemy because, you know, we just want to live with mom and dad. and party all night, and eventually that comes back to haunt us. Sometimes difficult Saturn karma can be, with a bad placement, can be inertia, leading not feeling supported. Maybe we didn't support others in the past. I suffer a lot from not feeling supported, and I guess I have to support more people. Lack of self-confidence based on expectations of failure and fear of trying. So, yeah, Saturn can do a number, particularly in the first house or conjunct the ascendant, lower to the moon, creating lack of self-confidence. And this can really block us from being adventurous moving forward. We have to call on Mars and the Nike spirit of just do it, and call on the Hanuman Chalisa to give us the courage to move forward. Saturn creates problems with anxiety, leading to health issues and allergies and ulcers. And it can, when it's out of balance, lead to workaholism and driving us mercilessly to exhaustion and a breakdown. So the big challenge of Saturn is to uplift and to spiritualize, to ask ourselves whether we are willing to commit to the world and uplift society. Again, that's the Aquarian ideal. Are we over concerned with duty and achievement so that causes too much stress in our life? Again, sometimes we have to pull back. When there's too much stress, we have to kind of stop pushing ourselves. We have to stay balanced. The remedy for Saturn is always Venus. Are we listening to music? I'm starting to listen to music in the morning because it's been great for the Venus debilitation, but it balances out the workaholism of Saturn. Are we doing fun things? Are we staying in relationship, or do we stay isolated and alone? And that irritates the dark side of Saturn of isolation and loneliness. Have we accepted spiritual responsibility for ourselves and our destiny versus complaining? Again, I can't overemphasize this, is that, Saturn doesn't like complaining, and we don't like anybody who complains, and ultimately it's an unconscious habit. We need to actually find ways to, the opposite of complaining is to kind of find the good in what is happening, to praise what is working. And it's not a Pollyanna attitude. It's just being more conscious of our unconscious complaining, which doesn't go anywhere and which drains us. So very important to have that awareness. Saturn represents guilt and fear and self-imposed restriction. We create our own prisons of fear sometimes. Again, it's all, Saturn has so much to do with our mind, and it's our mind that creates the problem, it creates the suffering. Some of my spiritual teachers have always pointed out that, pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. And we get people that, we all have to experience pain and disappointment. And there's some people that make sure that everybody around them suffers with them, and they kind of twirl it in their mind. Oh my God, I don't have this and I don't have that, and that person's terrible. And then somebody did something to somebody, and then 6 weeks later, they're still, dredging it up. It's gone. Let it go. We can't. We have to be conscious of how we create suffering in our life. And it means that we have to be conscious about complaining. We have to be conscious about being positive about things that do work, and working to fix the things that don't, but not feeling victimized and complaining. It's very important. How do we handle guilt and shame? Very important. Again, Saturn requires responsibility. That's always the key word. That means when you make a mistake, you have to apologize and say, I messed up, and I want to take you out to dinner because I really appreciate you and I want to show you that I care. And, we have to kind of, usually we come up with excuses when we do something wrong, and we just have to say sorry, and we have to make it right. Again, it's eventually Groundhog Day. You have to get it right, otherwise you have to keep repeating the pain. So, again, But also we have to remember that there's no punishment in God's world. It's self-inflicted punishment. It's not, we're the ones actually that create more suffering than God's. Not always, God isn't out there trying to punish us. It's really kind of, we punish ourselves by rewinding our mind over and over again about things, and that self-flagellation is not useful. Dark side of Saturn, again, depression when it's connected to the moon during Sadisad or during transit, loneliness, isolation, and depression. It's a huge problem. 20 million people suffer from depression. And the remedy is always Venus, getting out and socializing. And you don't feel like socializing when you feel depressed and lonely. You got to kind of make a point of joining groups. And if you know you're like this, you have to like be with people, and you have to join groups, and you have to do things together. You have to add more prana in your diet, more raw salads and juices that combats depression. Breath work is good. Saturn requires us to kind of get out of the past. There's no point living in the past and swimming in the sewer water. We're a new person every time. I mean, the Saturn Ketu thing is a real problem because it really is kind of getting stuck in the past. And we just have to kind of make reparations when we've done something wrong and move forward. There are people that, you know people like that. Something happened 20 years ago and you're still thinking about it and you're still stuck on it. Again, the mantra, that was then, this is now, that was then, this is now. If you don't move beyond that, you're in trouble. The Saturn's too afflicted, it creates too much fear, and then that keeps us from moving forward. Okay, so that's my long philosophical summary on Saturn, and I think all of us need to kind of review those points. I put them in writing in your cookbook for you, but any quick thoughts on any of that or questions?
I think Saturn really lift his veil after 36. I mean, I feel it really strongly. Before that, I feel like he's working to create a lot of obstacles or lessons, but for some reason it was very subtle and I can't really pinpoint what's happening. But I think he's really fair. And also he's very on time. I remember after I passed 30 birthday and just yeah, a lot of things and answers came up, and yeah, so I appreciate Saturn.
We have to love
Yeah, but
Saturn.
like when time is not, yeah, when time is not right, he has the ultimate patience, which I gotta admire. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Any reflections, Yafi, on what I've said?
Well, I'm going through Saudi Sati, so it's not pretty. It's not all, yeah, it's hard. And I think ultimately Saturn does force you to turn inward and spiritual, but it's still, the blocking energy, the miserable energy, and the suffering. But I'm a little surprised about Saturn right now. Like I said, I'm going through the Saudi Sati. Saturn is retrograde, but it's not. It's in my 26th nakshatra, not even in the Manas nakshatra. Yet I have been experiencing like some severe Manas nakshatra energy, and I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, retrograde. The thing is, Saturn is debilitated in the Devamsha at the moment. It's in the Aries pada at 21 degrees or something like that, and it's just kind of a dark place. And when it's retrograde, it's more fierce. It gets out of that pada October 3rd, and then it'll move forward November 15th. So I think, understanding, what's going on can be helpful. And usually Saturn and Aries, and we need more Hanuman Chalisa, we need more meditation, you know, we need to drink more calming herbal teas, and we have to kind of sometimes, you know, quiet the mind chatter. I mean, you know, the mind, believe it or not, you know, can be quiet. We can't make it wrong when it's chatty, but at the same time, you kind of have to get to this point. Oh, there goes my stupid fear mind again. You know, or there goes my stupid suffering mind again. You know, and not make it wrong, but just recognize it. You can witness it, and if you do that, then it doesn't have as much power, because you're more powerful than the planets. You're more powerful than all of that. But you have to kind of recognize. You have to have enough witnessing power. You have to be happy and clear enough for meditation and things like that to see, to catch yourself in those moments and just say, there I go again. Is this going to go anywhere? Am I just going to get more miserable? You know? So I think.
I know people who also have moon in the same location as my moon in Revati, and they're not experiencing the same thing. And I don't know if it's because I'm also going through a Saturn return that like doubles down.
It might be something like that. I mean, I think that Mercury in the 12th is a lot more problematic than you understand. Is it in Jeshta or is it in Anurata?
Jeshta, and then also I'm going through Rahu, Mercury, Ketu.
Right. You know, K2 always kind of, you know, again, we just talked about K2 in the 12th house today, but K2 kind of just dredges up a lot of past gunk that wants to heal. And I think we have to sometimes, you know, if you know that you're in a K2 period, you know there's some past gunk coming out. Sometimes we have to recognize that when stuff is kind of coming out, it may be purifying, it may be a good thing, but in the process of it coming out, it feels like painful. So, you know, K2 is kind of bringing up past energies, and you have to kind of recognize, oh, there it goes again. Isn't that interesting? You know, and you know, and do something. You know, I think we try to solve the mind with the mind, and we can't. So we take a walk, we get some exercise, we put on some music, we do some meditation. You know, all those things kind of help. But I mean, you know, with Mercury in the 12th, we can overanalyze everything to death, and the answer actually just might be like Venus is always the remedy for Saturn. So it's like, you know, go dancing, go to karaoke, you know, sing in the shower, you know, sing in the house, you know, put on lots of music and sing and dance. I mean, there's simple remedies, but they work. You know, I just started playing music in the morning while I'm doing my, you know, bathroom routine, and I can't believe how much happier it makes me. Otherwise, I'm like, I've got the morning, you know, dregs from spinning in the subconscious all night, and it doesn't go away right away. And you know, but I've just even started doing some music in the morning just to kind of like, you know, counteract some of it. You know, I don't know if any of that's helpful.
Oh, I mean, it makes sense. I think I do get in my head a lot, but at the same time, I haven't not in the past, I would say in the past month or so. As soon as I went into Rahu Mercury, I have not had a chance. It's like go, 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 go. And it's been really hard. And Rahu Mercury is in the D10 is in the 8th house. So it's been go, 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 go. And it's just been really tough. I mean, I'm working late. It's I'm exhausted.
Yeah, and some, you know, sometimes when we work for others, it's tricky, but I think, you know, sometimes you kind of, you know, you have to stand up for yourself and say, you know, you know, I love this job. I need a little more support from other members of the staff here, because it's getting overwhelming, and I don't want it to affect my health, and that has negative repercussions. Can you find me some extra support?
Oh, no, everybody's going through that, not just me.
Yeah.
I actually have sorry. I have a question, Barry. So
Yeah.
what is the general logic when it comes to remedy Saturn? Is it that we strengthen other planets and not really working, not saying we don't work on Saturn's lessons, but like strengthen, let's say Venus, Moon, all of the planets that give us peace and happiness, and or is it like we have to do Saturn mantra, Saturn sadhana to please Saturn, so he give us some hint of how to work things out? I'm actually just noticed your yeah, like I just noticed I actually Saturn is in the third pada. I'm sorry, third nakshatra of from my moon, so it's actually very dangerous. I was kind of yeah. I just realized that I was like, oh, that's not good sign. I wonder how to remedy during that difficult time. I also going through Sati Sati. So.
Yeah. We do have to find ways to balance our life, and I work for myself, so sometimes I just take off, which is not good. Saturn always likes us to work, but when you work for somebody else, you still sometimes you sometimes have to put up some boundaries in a kind way, and just I have seen companies where things get out of hand, and then everybody just ends up quitting, and the boss is left with trying to find new people and retrain them and stuff like that. I don't know how in an organization you communicate that to management in a kind way, and whether they can do anything out of it. Their superiors may be pushing them too hard. It just so I don't know enough about organizational structure, but I do sense that do you have a good relationship with your supervisors that you can openly talk about what's going on for you and your concerns?
My immediate supervisor is under a lot of stress too, but it's the big boss who's over all of us, who's very almost demonic, if you will, and
Okay.
has a lot of demonic energy, and she thrives on cruelty and almost just so it's hard to go against her because she has very strong, powerful placement. So yeah.
Right. Okay.
Or is there a remedy for Rahu so it will help Afi? I don't know, because that might be the Rahu in 6 is too strong.
Yeah, lately I don't. There are remedies and there are things, but lately I try to get very kind of practical. There are forces that can magically kind of change things sometimes, and you can pray and things like that. Is it possible to look for another position in another part of the government, with your qualifications? Is that something you've considered?
Yeah, if worse comes to worse, I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have to do that. But at this point, there's a lot of change that's happening. So, and one of the things that I've heard other astrologers say is that during Sati Sati, especially when Saturn is like in the Manas Nakshatra, which is, by the way, is going to go into my Manas in a month or so, that don't make any changes. Don't make any changes.
Yeah, no, it's true. Well, like I said, the biggest thing is that you have to find extra time to do self-care. I mean, whether sometimes for some people that's getting a massage on the weekend. For some people it's taking a relaxing herbal bath. For some reason it's, I don't know how much self-care that you are able to do, because you also have to take care of your mother. But I'm kind of, is there a way to balance out, the stress with kind of the practical remedies? I mean, there are.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. Oh, I figured out this little trick. I know it's not it cannot be like the ultimate answer, but I realized Shani really likes people introspect. So actually when I'm going through Sati Sati, every time when I have anxiety attack or have any stress, or I just stop believing in myself, all the fear came up, I will just immediately drop everything and start meditate, and I'm really just questioning like where it comes from. It does help to have things under control. It even alter realities. Some situation that after the meditation will slowly dissolve if you really face that fear and question where that come from, even if it's really, really uncomfortable. So that might help.
Yeah. I think we could also have a sidebar, because I am recording this too, so I want to
Right. Yeah, move on, Larry. Go ahead. Thank you so much, everyone.
But I think there are specific meditations and things that I could recommend for you, and I think we have to, when these difficult times come up, we just have to have more self-care. And I don't, and sometimes we get too exhausted to do self-care, and that becomes beating ourselves up. So we have to, when it's harder, we have to find the extra energy for the self-care. Otherwise it doesn't work, you see.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, we have to push forward with the self-care. Otherwise it's and everybody goes through this. I mean, it's just horrible. Okay, so I just wanted to quickly review the main points. I think it's just important to kind of learn the main principles about Saturn by sign and house, so that you can just always remember them. And I put them in the cookbook again. But in general, Saturn creates blocking energies to force us through core issues, and sometimes to fail to get through them. So we do have to kind of understand. I don't ever want people to become victims of Saturn. I think it's important just to kind of, Saturn also may be saying time out, or things have to change, and that's a useful thing to be aware of. Whereas Jupiter creates support and luck wherever it goes, and the sign that it's located in, Saturn does the opposite and creates blocks. Now, it doesn't necessarily totally deny, those energies. It just kind of makes us work harder. So, like, wherever Saturn is, we just are forced to work harder on those issues than we might normally like to. It's kind of like I explained with Rahu. In the Rahu course, wherever Rahu is, that's where we're kind of a phony, and we have to kind of spend our whole life kind of learning how to be better in that area. And I think the house that Saturn is in and the sign that Saturn is also kind of telling us to do that work. I've got Saturn in Libra, even though it's exalted, it's in the 12th house. It's still telling me that I've got to move out of isolation and learn to be in relationship. And if I learn, I've learned that at times, and sometimes it's hard. 7th house, natural 7th house, 12th house, I've easily learned the lessons about service work, but I've actually overworked them and stuff like that. So we have to kind of sometimes think what house Saturn is in, what sign it's in, what are the energies around those signs, what haven't I learned. If I've got Saturn there, what have I not learned? Saturn in Leo, you know, you don't have an identity, you don't have any self-esteem. You've got to do the work to build that, you know. So you think, you know, it's important to just kind of remember key words and key things about each house when you're quickly looking at Saturn by house and sign.
Is Sati the most difficult when Saturn and the Moon are in Aries? Because I know people who have Saturn Moon conjunction in Aries, and their Sati is going to come up pretty soon here.
It can be, you know, Aries is always difficult. Saturn in Aries is always difficult. I mean, there's some positives. I mean, even, you know, there's always a positive way to see anything. The problem I see with Saturn in Aries is it gets too material. It gets kind of lost in, it can get lazy and stuff like that. But if there are no forces helping Saturn in Aries, you know, with the Moon, it can be a bear. You know. You know, even if Saturn is strong in its own sign and it's in good houses like the 3rd, 6th, and 11, it still causes challenges. And, you know, that's why I always tell people, you know, well, we had Saturn in Aquarius, oh, everything's going to be wonderful. Well, no, it's strong malefics cause problems. And, you know, it may be good for the house significations, you know, wherever that is, but that's about it. You know, it's still causing a strong aspect to Aries or to Leo, and whatever houses are there, it's causing problems. So, but inevitably, we have to kind of, you know, we have to push through and not complain and stay out of suffering, and yet not, and stay out of denial also. I mean, you know, I'm not happy. I mean, you know, I'm not happy with my work level. What am I going to do about it? You know, and Saturn, you know, Saturn ultimately creates kind of those type of changes that force you to create something better in your life, and in the long run, it's good. And you know, I'm sure, you know, it'd be good for you to kind of look at long-term, you know, changes. I don't know if didn't we sense that? Anyway, it's something good. Saturn in the Dharma houses, you know, again, they're about identity, Aries, Leo, Sag, self-esteem, expressing our talents. And Saturn kind of deflates the ego in Aries and Leo, creates self-esteem problems. The Artha houses, the earth signs, we have to be thrifty and cautious about material things. Sometimes our bodily discomfort is at stake here, and we have to kind of learn to work through it. And the Kama signs, the air signs, they block communications and creativity, and we have to learn to kind of improve those things. So Saturn ultimately, it creates blocks, but it's saying, okay, this pain is too much. I have to go to Toastmasters, and I have to go to Gail Carnegie, and I have to learn how to do better communications, you know. And the water signs, you know, are always difficult because they're about emotions and unconscious emotional frustrations. And Saturn in the water signs is always very painful because somehow emotional pain is kind of worse than just about anything we can deal with. And we have to transform it through usually meditation and service work. Okay. You know, the rest of the cookbook has all the points about the different signs in the houses for you to kind of quickly look up. And I don't know if I had any other really important points I wanted to share with you, but I wanted to kind of just go over these summary points because I think it's important that we kind of drill them into ourselves, so that we can move forward. But I always want to encourage people not to be a victim of Saturn. It's not forcing you to be a victim. It's about ultimately teaching you to see something about yourself that may need to shift. And is it your job? Is it your relationship? Is it how you take care of your body, or how you're not taking care of your body? So Saturn's always a wake-up call about those things, and it can be a painful wake-up call, but ultimately it leads to evolution and creating something better. Anyway, those are my closing thoughts on Saturn. I have very much enjoyed teaching this class. I don't know, it kind of just called to me, last spring, and I'm glad that I did it. And I think we all, like I said, we all need to understand Saturn a little bit better, and it's so important in our growth and development. Final thoughts, questions, appreciations, comments?
This was a fantastic class. I mean, I too like Saturn. I have a strong Saturn, so I really appreciate, everything you teach us, and taking the time and caring. That's just really important. And Saturn is scary, but you're right. I mean, Saturn is one of my favorite planets, but boy, when it beats you down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoy this class. I also, especially, it's taught from a Saturn 8K, so yeah. I feel like finishing this class is almost paying respect to Lord Shani, and I was scared of him, but now I'm not really, but still a little bit, feeling fearful when he moves to different houses. Yeah, it does give a lot of clarity, which I think is the light that the signs on the light to dissolve a lot of fear. It helps with this class really helped with my mental health too. Every time I study something, I just I feel happier because there's more clarity. So
Very nice.
thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, I'm glad I could do that.
One thing, Barry, I noticed is that when Trump was going through Sati Sati, he became the president. And, he was going through Sati Sati during his presidency, and the same thing's happening to Harris. She's going to be going through Sati Sati as well.
Oh, she is?
Yeah, her moon is in Aries. Wow. And one thing that I've heard, I'm not sure if this is true, is Sati Sati doesn't, it's not like it takes away, it just adds to your responsibility. So when you're going through Sati Sati, it doesn't mean that Shani is taking away things. So I don't know if this is true or not, but Trump went through Sati Sati, so it's interesting.
Yeah, there's a part when Saturn goes through the 12th, though, it does kind of destroy the past. It beckons you to kind of resurrect something new. So Saturn in the 12th from the moon, does kind of force you to as it tears down the other. I told you whenever I have Saturn going through the 12th, I have, I quit graduate school and went off, last time I was seriously, wondering whether I was going to close my financial business, and I was looking to rebuild something. But ultimately Saturn in the 12th is just forcing you to create something better, and you have to kind of be willing to flow with change. And we don't like to change. I mean, Affy, is there some part of you that wants to move beyond the type of government law that you're doing? I mean, do I mean, I don't know. I mean, but I mean, I think if the point is that we are here to be happy, and our work becomes so much a part of our day and our happiness, and you do have to kind of reflect on that, and that may be part of the lessons of Saturn, going the 12th from your moon, and wanting to restructure your life a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
My point was that Eris is going to be going through that pretty soon too.
Yeah, who knows what'll happen? I don't know. It's just, I can't even talk about any of that stuff, because it's so.
So is Biden, by the way. He's got moon in the same place.
Right, that's true. Yeah. Well, he's going through it now, sitting on the beach.
No,
Wait,
no wonder so many people criticize them online.
Yeah.
He's not going through Sati Sati now. His moon is in Ashwini. Both of their moons are in Ashwini, but they're gonna be going through it early next year, right?
Right. Yeah. We'll see what
I
happens.
feel like Afi, you might really find happiness in your set project, like because you're very into reading people's charts, especially those celebrities, having a channel analyzing their chart and share that with people will balance the government job. The government job is so dry. I can't imagine. So
Right.
that might give you a lot of happiness.
It probably would give me some joy. But I have another question, Barry. A long time ago, I had found an ephemeris, a sidereal ephemeris that went through 2025, but I can't find that same thing anywhere. What ephemeris, what do you use to figure out besides the software?
In one of our classes today, I'd sent the 2025 through 2050 ones. Remember I told you they're in Sanskrit, so you have to remember Makara is Capricorn, and Tula is Libra. But I have one for 2025 I could send you in Sanskrit, if you don't mind the Sanskrit, or you just put it on flashcards and just learn, because it'll say, Shani and Tula or something, so you gotta remember that Saturn in Libra, right? But if you haven't memorized all the Sanskrit, and then they have Sanskrit abbreviations, so it's like it'll say Mach, moon in Mach, that means the moon's in Makara or something, in Capricorn. So you have to be able to, translate it quickly. I mean, I have no problem with it, but I like the English version. But he didn't. Dick Swinehart didn't print the he didn't do an English version for some reason. I mean, I know him personally, he's an old friend, but I don't know. I mean, I know why, because the Sanskrit names for the planets and the signs are more powerful than the English names, and so it's considered better to work with Sanskrit. But I can send it to you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I have a question, Mary. So for your class, I'm actually trying to learn predictions, just, general predictions. I wonder if you have a recommendation, like what class because you have many classes online, or are you planning to teach prediction anytime soon, or is there like a recording I can?
Right.
Barry, actually, that's a good question. I've heard KP is one of the best ways. I mean, the predictions with KP is like very powerful.
Yeah, I have studied it. I studied it in my early days. I don't use it very much. I have some. I had thought about doing a couple lessons on it, but you know, if I don't use something regularly and you know, I don't ever teach it. But in terms of you know, in terms of, I do have a class on prediction. I think it's 8 lessons. And I can send you a link for it if you want to buy it. I think it was an 8-week mini class that I did on, you know, one was timing marriage, one was timing educational advancement, one was timing finances, things like that. So I did have a class on prediction that we did.
Yeah.
And the third, have you done all the Doshas classes yet?
I no. So I
So
actually
I would,
had a Palashara basic class twice, but with another astrologer. So he included Dasha period there, but not very detailed. But yeah, I will take your recommendation, like in terms of what I should look at next. But I'm just really interested in like prediction, just personal interest, and also
so,
like Gemini.
yeah. So the 3 classes that I would work with would be, I would take, you know, the Dasha 1 and 2. I would take
Okay.
transits 2.0, and I would do I think I have 8 classes. I don't know if I put them on the website, but we taught them. I mean, I have them. We did that last year, didn't we, Effie?
Yeah, we did the prediction.
Major life events or something. I have
Yeah.
to see. I don't know if I listed it on the website. So if I didn't, I can, you know, I have it. I could, you know, send it to you. But can you find the
Okay.
links for Dashas 1 and 2 and Transits 2.0? I think you can.
Let me get to the website. I
If you
don't know,
ever
but
decide
I can send you an email if that's okay to, you know, like.
Yeah, I'll send you the links. Yeah, I'll send you the links.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, for those of you who aren't here for our final Saturn class, it was good having you, and hopefully enjoy this tape. And we're continuing with relationships every week, and more fun things next year. So with that, I will sign out and wish you a happy Saturday, and thank you for joining today. Take care.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you. Bye-bye.